I'm excited. Welcome back. Welcome back. I am Alessandra Nicholson, CRCST, owner of the Candray Institute, and I am coming to you guys with a 4-part study hall series called Ready, Set, Sterilize. All right, so I just wrapped up a free sterile processing 101 course that I offered on TikTok and YouTube through the Hillman Talk trend that went viral. I made a video and I asked if anybody needed help getting their CRCST, and like 100,000 people were like, yes, please. And of all of them, quite a few of y'all showed up to the Candray Institute's lives week after week after week. And so what I noticed is that my students are all flown the coop. They graduated their class. A couple of them have turned in their work to get their certificates of completion. And now everybody's off in their own little corners studying for the sterile processing exam. So I thought, what better way to support you than to bring you a little study hall session where we can get together. I'm going to do 4 weeks of that. So every Monday from today on, we'll be meeting at 4:45, and I'm just hanging out here with y'all until 6. This is not a class like we were doing before, so I don't have everything prepared for you, if you will. What I have is my lecture notes from my class, as well as the quizzes that we use throughout the class. And then I also just going to be pulling for you from the free resources that are available online, because you guys were studying with me. It was a free class. So I want to make sure that I continue that trend, and everything that I give you is something that you can access for free. Okay. So we will be utilizing some of the podcast, the third-party companies that have developed exams and videos for you guys. Anything I can find that's free online to help you. Okay. Hi, Andrea. I missed you guys. Okay, I'm so excited to be back with y'all. Y'all don't even know. Hi, Tiki Taki. And Tiki Taki, if y'all want to see what's going to be on the screen, then y'all got to click the link in the bio and go to the YouTube, because I will be sharing class notes and I will be sharing my screen. Otherwise, hang out here. You're welcome. And if you don't mind, tap the screen or like and share from wherever you are. And we're about to get started. So as y'all can see, your comments will pop up on the screen. That's a little bit different than when we were in class. And when we were in class, I would read them first and then pop them up there. Okay. But today I have it set up to where it just goes up there. So everything that you guys share, every question that you ask, every answer that you give will be a part of the live stream recording. So when people go back and look, they will be able to see it. So not like y'all was talking crazy in class, nothing like that, but just saying, just as a disclaimer so that y'all know. All right. Hi, Chris. Good afternoon. Andrea, are the notes available for printing? They will be. So don't forget, all of the class notes are still up on the Wix website. If you go to the link in the bio for YouTube, you should be able to make your way back to the website, okay? And on the website, I have all of the lecture notes for every chapter that we went through. So that is still there, along with some quizzes and vocabulary quizzes and like chapter review quizzes and things of that nature. Also, don't forget, at the bottom of all of those lecture notes were some mini quizzes as well. Okay, so those are still up. I pretty much figured I would leave all the free stuff up until I launch the next paid class, because I know you guys are out there studying. Okay, so that's where I'm at with it. All right. So let me pop up for you the overview for Ready, Set, Sterilize. As I said, this is going to be a free study hall 4-part series. We're going to go through the entire book from chapter 1 through chapter 24. And remember, I'm currently working from the 7th edition. I had to remember which one do I got in my bag? The 7th edition. I have some students that have the 7th edition, some that have the 8th edition, some that have the 9th edition. And if you're totally new here and you don't know what I'm talking about at all, let me slow down a little bit and say that I'm teaching my coursework from HSPA, which is a Healthcare Sterile Processing Association, and it's one of the 2 bodies that you can get certified through. The other body that you can get your certification through is CBSPD. Okay, so while I'm at it, let me pull those up because you guys can check out those websites. Let me pull those up and pop them up on the screen. CBSPD and HSPA. Now, my HSPA.org is the website that I'm working from. That's where I got my certification from. But do know that CBSPD is another option, and it gives you the exact same ability to get work in the field, okay? So and hospitals recognize both of them. The only big differences between CBSPD and HSPA is that like your exams will be a little bit different, but they're covering the same topics. Obviously, your acronym for your certification will be a little bit different, but again, covering the same topics. And then with HSPA, you're required to get recertified every single year. So around the time that whatever you take the certification, like for me, I took it in October. So every October, for renewal. And that means that I need to turn into HSPA 12 continuing education credits. CEUs is what we call them for short in the healthcare industry. And so you can get CEUs a number of ways. You can do it by attending in-services at your job. You can do it by finding free CEU classes online. There are now even podcasts that if you listen to the full episode of the podcast and take a short quiz, you can get a continuing education credit. Now, what is a CEU? A continuing education credit is proof that you are continuing your education while you're actively certified in the field. You are staying up to date on what new science is coming out about what you do, because I don't know if y'all remember me saying this 1,000 times in the class, but sterile processing is science-based. Y'all learned about microbiology. Y'all learned about anatomy and physiology. We started talking about medical conditions, surgical procedures. This is all science-based, okay? And that science is always changing. People are finding out new things. People are putting out new products. And so it's important for you and incumbent on you as a certified professional to stay up to date. And that is how you show the industry, how you show your governing body that you're doing that, is by giving them proof through continuing education credits. Now, the cool thing about the CEUs for y'all, even though you're not currently certified, you can actually use those resources now to study, because as I said, there are many third-party companies. Now, what do I mean when I say third-party? I mean a company that sells you a product or a service that has to do with the industry, but they don't work with you in the hospital. So like, for instance, the companies that sells us gauze or the companies that sell us detergent. They don't work in the hospital with us, but they provide a service or a product to us that we use, and therefore they're a part of our industry. And we call them third party. So there are a lot of third party companies that have education built for sterile processing technicians that to keep them up to date. And so you guys can go on to those websites and you can utilize those services. You don't have to be certified in order to make an account and check that out. Okay. And so it just gives you, again, another opportunity to find a place where you can reinforce that information. So I'll pop some of those websites up on the screen as well. Give me just a second. All right. And then outside of that, as we go through this 4 weeks together, this is y'all study hall, just like it was your class. If you have questions, ask them. If you want help with definitions, ask. Bring your inquisitive nature to study hall. I'm not here to just lecture to you as we go through this hour and a half together, or what I have for an hour, 15 minutes, something like that. Bring your flashcards. I would love it if you guys would join me here live on the StreamYard. I can absolutely send you a link and we can quiz each other back and forth, because I know y'all made flashcards. I know y'all did, because y'all told me every week that y'all was writing out them definitions. So I know y'all got them. Right? So we can have a little fun with this and get to see each other and get to be together. I know being in a classroom setting was something that was important to y'all. So I want to share that with you. All right, so without further ado, let me pop up the CBSPD and the My HSPA websites just to make sure y'all are aware. I can share a screen. And I want to share a tab. Okay. So the website we're looking at right now is cbspd.net. This is one of the places that you can get your exam through. What I didn't say, the difference between HSPA and CBSPD when it comes to continuing education is that CBSPD requires you to recertify every 5 years. So you will take your test, you will pass, and then you will be certified for 5 years before you have to show proof to CBSPD that you have remained working in the field and that you have remained up to date on continuing education for those 5 years. So that being said, when I was putting my sterile processing manager hat on for a second, I spent 8 years in management. One of my pet peeves as a manager with my CBSPD folks, and this is not with CBSPD, the company, but with the people that would get the certification. Sometimes they would wait until that 5th year to start scrambling and trying to find all this proof that they needed to show that they have been doing CUUs the entire time. Because CBSPD does expect that you guys are doing that continuously throughout the 5 years. And then at the end of the 5 years, they're turning that paperwork in. Okay. And they are a little more strict when it comes to what they're willing to accept as far as proof that you have been engaged in the industry. Okay. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm not knocking them for it. So this is the CBSPD website. Again, you can see here, they've got blog links. They've got education on this page. So you can absolutely come here and use this as a resource as you are getting ready to study. And then just like sterile processing, just like the CRCST is offered for the basics of SPD sterile processing, and then HSPA has those additional certifications, CBSPD is the same way. So you would get a CBSPD certification, but then they also have additional ones if you're in ambulatory surgery, if you're doing flexible GI scopes, if you're going to be a healthcare leader and move into management, lead tech, supervisor, manager, director. And then they also have a surgical instrument specialist exam. Okay. So on the HSPA website, it's a little bit different. Let me pop out and I'll show you guys that. All right. I'm going to share the myhspa.org websites, which you guys should be most familiar with because that's the one that we used during the class. Hello over there. All right, so HSPA, this is where you guys are going to go to get your certification information. At the start of our course, I had for you guys to navigate here and download some information. So hopefully you are a little bit comfortable with using this website. You can get an overview of what they're going to have you test over in the certification. It's also going to tell you how many test answers you need to pass. It's going to walk you through all the steps to get certified, and just a real quick rundown. Again, you guys are absolutely able to now take that exam. Well, you were always able to take it because they don't require you to take a class, which... Look, let me take my manager hat off because I'll get upset. It doesn't require you to take a class or to prepare for this anyway, but you guys are now better prepared to pass the exam because you did commit to a course. And so you will be able to fill out an application. You will turn that into HSPA. You will pay your fees. They will send you back an email with your numbers to Prometric so that you can get, hi, friend. But say if you want to join us over on YouTube, I'll be having all the stuff up on my screen. But if you want to hang out over here, you're more than welcome. I'm glad you're here. And then they'll give you a number back via email to tell you that you can go take this number and then go to Prometrics and make an appointment. Okay, Prometrics, again, as another third-party vendor, they offer supervised testing. So you will take that number, you'll make an appointment with them. You'll go in, you'll put all your stuff in a locker. They'll take you into the room, give you a pencil. They'll set you up on the computer, and then you'll take your exam. Okay, so that's HSPA. And again, you'll recertify every year. To get to the forms and applications, it's under this certification link. And this is where you guys came at the beginning of the course to get that certification handbook. So that's there. Make sure you review that before you take your exam. And then they also have, and we should go over this today, a CRCST exam content outline. Okay, so I'll keep that up and we'll look at that in a little bit. All right. And then let me close out a few things. And I'll show you guys real quickly some free resources. And then we're going to get into the content for today. I appreciate you over there. Tap that screen for me while you hanging out, friend. Okay, so two, or actually, let me show you Beyond Clean too while I'm at it, because that one you can listen to, and I know everybody learns differently, so I want to give y'all a bunch of different options. Okay, so Beyond Clean is a podcast that's based in the sterile processing industry. They talk about sterile processing topics from sterilization to cleaning to instruments to storage. Actually, your favorite sterile processing professor is featured on a Beyond Clean episode. So you guys can actually listen to me talk about, I think we did sterile storage actually. And you can take a test and get some CEUs under your belt already. But I'm also going to show you HealthMark, because HealthMark has a lot of like games and prep courses on their website. And then the last one I'm going to show you is Sterilize University. And Sterilize University I like because they have a lot of video-based and webinar-based information. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen a couple more times. And then we're finna get into it. Okay, so this first one I'm showing you is the podcast. Oh, I know that lady. I know that lady too. All right, so this is Beyond Clean. And this is a podcast based in sterile processing. That is Hank Bosch and Justin Pullian. They are the leaders and founders of this company. That's Lindsay, one of my good friends. She used to be my rep and sell me brushes many, many years ago. But that's Beyond Clean. So you can come here and you can see up at the top. You can listen to the podcast wherever y'all listen to podcasts, all right? And so they have a plethora of free information, free exams for you to utilize at your discretion. Okay, so that's there for you. And the reason why I would say just pop it on, find one on decontam or find one on sterilization, pop it on when you're in the car. Because the thing about this test is, oh my God, y'all, I feel so crazy. They got all my friends on this screen right now. Way to go, guys. I got to see Jesse live some time ago. Great presentation on decontam. But yeah, pop this on, because then you're going to be hearing these concepts over and over again, okay? And then when you get into that test, it should be a breeze to you because you already know the vocabulary. You've been studying. And then this is going to help you get a deeper understanding of the concepts, okay? All right, so that's Beyond Clean for my auditory listeners or for my folks that are making commutes and got time to listen. And there are tons of sterile processing podcasts, okay? This is just one of the bigger ones. And what I like about them is that they have a lot of tests that are attached to CEUs. So it's something that you guys can use to get ready to test, but it's something you can also use to stay certified. Okay, so this next one I'm going to show you is Sterilize University. And I like Sterilize University because it has a lot of webinars and video-based content. You know, so maybe this is something you can throw on the computer or your phone while you're just kind of pounding around. But you can see here, they have it listed out as courses. You can make an account with them for free, and then you can watch and utilize any of the content that is available on the website, okay? So again, same as Beyond Clean, you can come here, you can pick a topic and then learn about it. And it's free, okay? And it'll help you, again, get ready to test. So you can see here with topics like sterilization, how biological indicators work, right? We talked about that during class a few times. So you can see these titles should be benign enough that you guys can figure out which ones will be beneficial to you and then move from there. Like, for instance, I would say improving endoscope drying, probably not something y'all need to be concerned about right now. But something like how does a BI work? Yeah, you would highly benefit from watching that. Okay. And then again, this is a resource that you can grow with, because once you get certified, you can come back out and use that as often as you need to. The last one I'm going to show you is from HealthMark. HealthMark is a third-party company that sells cleaning utensils to sterile processing. They also do a lot of education and consulting, but they sell brushes and they sell sterile processing like peel packs and anything you could think of that you could use to prepare a tray for sterilization. HealthMark offers. And they have an exceptional team of educators that they send out all over the country to help support sterile processing departments nationwide, worldwide, actually. They some international little babies. All right, so here's Healthmark Academy. The other thing about this resource is it's been around for a very long time. So this resource has been growing with the industry just as much as the company has been growing in and of itself, okay? So there's lots of things that have been here. Like, for instance, Crazy for Clean Games has been online since I was a little baby tech back in 2008, okay? But you can also see here that they've got some webinars, they've got podcasts, they've got continuing education, they even have product tutorials. So for you guys that haven't been inside of a hospital, you can come and see what type of products that they use in the department and get tutorials on how to use them. Again, just drilling the foundation of sterile processing. All right, so you got some games you can play here, just webinars you can watch, podcasts you can listen to, all kinds of ways to learn. All right, so that's that. So, all right, so let's get into Ready, Set, Sterilize. I'm going to give you a little outline of what our next four sessions are going to look like, and then we're going to get into reviewing the first few chapters of the sterile processing certification book. All right, share screen. Okay, so this study hall series, the objective is to provide some structured, interactive review sessions with quizzes to assess comprehension and reinforce retention of sterile processing principles. All big fancy words to say I'm offering us structure by us meeting every Monday for the next 4 weeks, offering this container of a study hall for this hour and 15 minutes. You guys are welcome to bring your flashcards. You're welcome to bring your textbooks. You're welcome to bring YouTube videos you found. I'd love to know if you go off and do listen to a Beyond Clean podcast, or you do play a Healthmark Crazy for Clean game. Let me know how it helped. This is for us to connect over this material so that when you walk in the door of Prometrics and you get ready to take your exam, you feel confident, because you should be confident, because you guys have been studying this for months now. You got it. All right, so we're just going to be drilling key concepts and get you ready for the exam. So I broke it up into 4 sessions. The first session is going to go over the foundation of sterile processing. Our focus area is just going to be another basic introduction to sterile processing, another basic introduction to microbiology and infection control, and another basic introduction to decontamination processes. I want to make sure you guys have that foundation, because if you understand the foundation of how to clean, disinfect, sterilize, store, and transport surgical instruments, remember that life cycle of a tray, then when you see questions on this exam, you're going to be able to think through what it is they're trying to get you to answer for them. So it'll make it a little easier for you not to get tripped up. It also should make it a little easier for you to find answers on the exam, because you might answer a question and then go down a few more questions and they bring up a concept and you're like, wait a minute. I know that I have to disinfect before I have to clean before I disinfect. So that answer that I put up there earlier, that can't be right. And you will be able to troubleshoot through your exam. One of the nice things about the Prometrics test is that if you get to a question you might not be 100% sure about, you can answer it or not answer it and save it. And you can keep going on the exam and then come back and review all those questions that you had put in your parking lot. Okay, so that helps you just get the information you need and then come back. And also, I found that it was a lot easier for me to answer some of those questions the second pass through. All right, so just some tips on test taking. All right, so we're going to go over this. We're doing the welcome and agenda right now. We're going to spend a few minutes going over the role of sterile processing in the department, microbiology and the types of microorganisms and infection transmission, because that's the whole point of y'all jobs, is to interrupt infection transmission. We're going to talk about workflows and PPE, manual versus mechanical cleaning. And then we're going to stop and do some group quizzes. We're going to take a look at some of the resources that I made available for you guys in the course, and then review and answer. You guys are more than welcome to ask questions or make comments throughout the entirety of this course. It is open session for you. And then just a little peek ahead for next Monday, we'll be looking at instrumentation, prep, and packaging. So we'll be talking about chapters 5, 6, 8, and a little bit of 10. just sprinkle a little bit of 10 in there. But if you have questions specifically on those chapters or anything that we've covered through the duration of the course, I don't want y'all to hesitate to ask, okay? So that's that. So we are about to get into a little light review of chapters 1, 2, and 3. Any questions for me so far, ladies? Y'all know I'll talk SPD. Y'all know it. Let me know if you're with me. What Kirk Franklin said. All right. Thank you, Tiki Taki. I appreciate it. Okay. Yes. You can. So Chris asked, are we still able to submit the essay? Absolutely. Y'all did the class. You are more than welcome to turn that essay in whenever you like. Please take the time and do a little research. I'm just asking you to do it to prove that you have these concepts. Please don't spend my time reading no ChatGPT essay. I beg. If it's not important enough to you to write it and do the research yourself, please don't send me no ChatGPT essay. I beg. Thank you. That's all I'm at. Because listen, this is a sterile processing school. This is not English 103, okay? You don't have to be perfect about your citation. You don't have to be perfect about your paragraphs. I'm not going to give you a grade or no craziness like that. It is a pass or fail. And the pass is that you took the time to learn and find these resources and understand the concepts. That's the pass, all right? So please, okay? Please don't send me no ChatGPT essay. I love you. All right. But yes, Chris said you can absolutely still turn that in. Like I said, for you guys, I didn't have no real structure set up. So you were doing your class at your own leisure. You could turn that in whenever. If y'all want to bust up 5 years later and be like, here's my final essay, that's on you. I encourage you to just keep grinding out the studying, because while this information is fresh, is the best time to take that exam if you're ready to take it. All right. I thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate it. All right. You're welcome, love. You're welcome. And then you fine. You fine. Look, this for y'all. It's just gonna be here for you. You ain't gotta be here or not be here, right? Okay, so let's get into a quick review of the first few chapters of the sterile processing technical manual. I'm gonna pull those notes up. If I had them up, ain't that right there? Here we go. If I'm like, am I ready? And Kimberly, if you want to see what's on my screen, if you head over to our YouTube at the Candray Institute, okay? I don't want you to feel like you're missing out, but otherwise, hang out on my TikTok. I enjoy having you here. And you're more than welcome to drop any questions in the chat that you need, okay? Okay, so Chapter 1 of the HSPA 8th edition technical manual was giving you an introduction to central service. All right, so it gave you some key terms that I want you guys to be aware of. Hold on, my formatting did not translate the way I wanted to. Let me drop that down for y'all. All right, so it gives you an overview of the sterile processing department and its role in patient care and its relationship with other hospital departments. So we spent time talking about this in class. Sterile processing, the department is responsible for the cleaning, disinfection, sterilization, storage, and transport of surgical instruments. You guys are the ones that receive them. When they're dirty, you clean them. You get all of the bioburden off of them, whether that's manual cleaning or mechanical. Why can't I say mechanical today, y'all? Mechanical cleaning. And then you guys check them. You make sure the instruments actually cut. They actually punch. They actually work the way that they're supposed to work. You assemble them into packaging. You get them ready for sterilization. You sterilize them by knowing which methods of sterilization they need to use, by going through that instructions for use, right? Those IFUs. And then after all that, you still are responsible for storing it in a way that maintains its sterility. Because what's the point of doing all that cleaning, disinfection, and sterilization? And then you put the pack up in a hot, humid room, and now the sterility is compromised, right? So that is why you guys are spending the time to learn this science now, so that you can be responsible for those things later. And that is your role in patient care. Patients, by and large, have no clue who y'all are. Okay? Go outside right now, ask somebody if they ever heard of sterile process, and they're going to say, huh? Huh? What you say? We'll say it slower one more time. They don't know. But go outside, ask somebody, have they ever had surgery before? Go outside, ask somebody, do they know somebody that has had surgery before? Everybody hand go up, right? Every single person you know has been touched by a sterile processing tech. Whether they came into the ER to get a laceration, get some stitches, whether they came into the OB to get a C-section, whether they came into the operating room because they broke a bone or they got to check on the appendix, okay? Everybody has been touched by surgical procedures. So it is absolutely incumbent on you as a participant in patient care to understand that that is your role, to be that invisible hand. Now, I personally want y'all to go out and shout from the rooftops what you do and what you study and why it's important. Okay, because again, like I told y'all in that video, even if y'all never get this certification, the information you know now is safety. That's information you can use to make safe decisions for your care. That's information that lets you know that your pill pack shouldn't actually be open when you go into the OBGYN and you wasn't in that room yet. Because you know that the bonds of sterility have been compromised when the event-related sterility is happening. We broke the package. That's an event. Now that's not considered a sterile item anymore. I don't need that hanging out in the room open before I get here. Wait for me. Wait for me. Right? So it's going to give you that body of knowledge. All right. So key terms that you should already have on flashcards. Central service. Remember, central service is another term that stands for the same thing that sterile processing department stands for. It's just the older way that they used to say it. And where it came from was that central supply or central services used to be sterile processing and materials management. So sterile processing would produce the surgical packs, and then materials management would stock all the goods, the Foleys, the catheters, the needles, the syringes, anything that the hospital needed to be ordered, it would happen in materials management. So the services were centralized in the hospital in that they would deliver that stuff out to the floors. So up to med surg, up to OB, up to ER, up to procedure rooms would all come from this central service department. Okay, so hopefully that make a little bit more sense. So again, it's the same as SPD in the industry now. It's synonymous. And also just a reminder, we're starting to see those departments separate. So more and more materials management and central service, or SPD, are starting to not be a single serve department anymore and be standalone departments. So they'll have their own manager, their own director, their own staff. Okay, so they are the department that is responsible for cleaning, decontaminating, assembling, sterilizing, storing, and distributing medical instruments and equipment. Another key term to know for this exam is decontamination. That is the process of removing bioburden and other contaminants from instruments. That is going to carry you far. Remember, decontamination is a very large part of your job, but it's also a very large part of your exam. Then we have sterile processing department, same as central service. That's the department that handles instrument sterilization. And what is instrument sterilization? The cleaning, decontaminating, assembling, okay? Same thing. Point of use cleaning. The process of removing gross contaminants from instruments immediately after use. And somebody tell me in the chat, where does point of use cleaning occur? Where do we do that at? Bonus points if you could tell me who does it. Because it's actually not us. Where does point of use cleaning take place? The answer is in the term. I'll wait. What the man said, do. Because YouTube trying to make me do all the work today, Kimberly. Me and Kimberly over here putting the work in. Kimberly got at 1.8 likes. Me and Kimberly putting the work in. YouTube, all they got to do is answer the question. Kimberly, I don't know. They might not be ready to take the test. Point of use cleaning takes place at the point of use. So let's say that the kid is in the ER and they're getting their procedure done at the bedside in the operating room, in the ER. Point of use cleaning is going to take place right there at the bedside in the ER. That nurse that is conducting that procedure, or that resident or that doctor that's conducting that procedure, is going to be responsible for taking care of those instruments by getting them prepared for transportation. That's going to be removing gross soil. That might be wiping them down. It might be flushing them. Like, let's say they're suctioning, they sucking all, right? They got to flush that out, wipe that down, and put that into a transport container that is closed and sealed with the biohazard label on it, and get it into a utility room or get it down to an SPD near them. Okay, so that's point of use cleaning. Workflow principles. Workflow principles and SPD are important for y'all to understand, because what workflow principles dictates is the movement of instruments from soiled areas to clean areas to sterile areas. Now, what does that mean? It's talking about the flow, that life cycle of a tray. So that tray starts out dirty at the top, it goes to decontam. It cannot skip decontam and go to sterile storage. It has to go to decontam first. And from decontam, it's going into that washer, and it's going into prep and pack, and it's going into the sterilizer, and then it's going into sterile storage. It cannot skip any of those steps. It cannot bounce around any of those steps. That is the flow, just like a clock, right? I can't flip it and reverse it. So workflow principles help you, because it will help you answer questions that might try to trip you up about the workflow, right? If I tell you that I just used these instruments in the ER and they were in the soil utility room and I brought them straight to prep and pack, alarm bells should be going off in your head, because what do you mean you brought that straight from the soil utility and you skipped decontam? That's breaking the chain of infection. That's breaking the workflow principle here. So understand that as a key concept should take you far. All right. Next one up is integrated delivery networks. So IDN. This is not going to be a big one on your test, but this is something I want you guys to understand. IDNs are system of healthcare facilities that are under a parent organization that standardizes procedures across multiple locations. Again, what is all that Italian, Spanish, French that I just said? Systems of healthcare facilities. So this is anytime you see, like, let's say it says Banner Health, or it says Kaiser Permanente, or in my area, it says Southern Illinois Healthcare. That is going to be a network of hospitals and care facilities, like could be some rehabs in there, could be some cancer institutes in there, could be, what is this word? It's escaping me. Urgent cares. It could include urgent cares. It could even include outpatient surgical facilities. So and they're all under that, guys, right? So it might say SIH Memorial, SIH whatever, Kaiser Oakland, Kaiser was in Richmond, Kaiser was in Sacramento, Kaiser was in LA, right? So you could go anywhere within that network and access those facilities. Okay, so an integrated delivery network is just that. It's a system of healthcare facilities that are under a parent organization. And that parent organization, whether it's SIH, whether it's Kaiser or any of these other healthcare systems, they will create their policies and procedures, and then they will disseminate that out to their hospitals that they own. Okay, and the expectation is that everybody that's in that system is following all the same rules and regulations. You should be getting the same kind of service. They're going to standardize their procedures across multiple locations. So that should mean that when you walk into one, you walk into them all for the most part. Okay. Any questions about the vocabulary we went over so far? Thank you, Kimberly. Kimberly on 2.9. She ain't playing with you. Hopefully YouTube at least like the video. I don't know. I don't know, Kimberly. I see him over there. All right. So we talked about and I'll put these up on the website too for you guys when we come off live. But we talked about the processing cycle, or what I call the life cycle of a tray, right? So you have to know this. This has to be ingrained in your whole body for the rest of your natural sterile processing life. Don't go take that test if you can't recite this. And this is something that I would put on a flashcard because you do have all these individual terms on flashcards, but I will also make one that is this process cycle so that you're continuing to just really review and remember how these steps go together, okay? So you got cleaning. It's the first step in the processing cycle. You have to remove all visible soil and bioburden from instruments. And why do we take the time to say visible? The reason why we take the time to say visible soil and sterile processing is because another key concept that you absolutely must understand is that when you wipe down an instrument, you wipe the blood off of it, you wipe the poop off of it, you wipe the mucus off of it, it is not clean, right? It is just free of how we say it is free of gross soil, but it isn't clean, right? We know now that there is still a layer of germs that's on that instrument, but the first step is to clean and remove that visible soil and bioburden from those instruments. Then we're going to get into the disinfection and the sterilization, okay? So from cleaning, we move into processing. You're going to, in that cleaning room, you're going to do cleaning, you're going to do disinfection, you're going to get that instrument safe to handle. I might even add that for you guys. So just to be perfectly clear, okay? And I'll put the definition in before I post the notes. Okay, so then processing would technically be 3. Processing is when the instruments come out of decontam. They either have been manually cleaned or they've been mechanically cleaned or both. And now they're coming out of the washer onto the processing side. This is where what we also call assembly area in some departments. And this is where you guys are now going to take those baskets of instruments and you're going to inspect them. You're going to look them over. You're going to touch them. You're going to feel them. You're going to see if they cut, if they're sharp, if they have pieces that go together. You're going to make sure they have all the pieces that go together. You're going to get a count sheet or what we call how do they call it? Some places call it a recipe. But you're going to get a list of everything that belongs in that instrument kit, and you're going to start checking them off. What does Santa Claus do? Make a list, check it twice, gonna find out. Okay, who naughty or nice? Is everything in here that I need? Is everything in here that I need working? Is everything that I need in here have everything that it needs? And once the answer to that question is yes, to the best of your ability, you're going to package that stuff up and get it ready for sterilization. Also, remember, this is where it is critical for you to document on missing stickers or document in your instrument tracking systems what is missing from those trays. Because your procedure room technicians are going to expect when you give them a major set 1 or you give them a small bone tray, you give them a lap tray and you say, here you go, from SPD, love you, that it has everything that you said it was going to have in it. And if it doesn't, you are absolutely responsible for communicating that on the outside of that tray. Because remember, when I open the kit, I have now created a compromised sterility, right? I have created an event. Now my sterility is compromised. We can't go back unless we go all the way back to the beginning. What the man said, way back in the time. I cannot go back to sterile without going back to clean, without going back to assembly, without going back to sterilization. Okay? So it's absolutely important for you guys to not skip that step. Once you get that instrument set ready for those surgeons and you know that it's safe for your patient, you're going to sterilize it. We talked about different modes of sterilization, both being low temp and high temp, right? So high temp being steam sterilization, low temp being some of the chemical sterilization, which came in many types. So we'll get into that in just a second. I'll hop back over here and see if YouTube still sleep. Okay, YouTube still let me talk to them. Okay. You're going to, based on the instructions for you, so that IFU and IFU will be on your exam in several different ways. So make sure you understand what that is and hold that near and dear to your CRCST heart forever and always, because that's going to be where you always find the information that you need on how you clean, process, sterilize, store, and use your surgical instrumentation. You're never going to guess. You're never going to say, well, Alessandra told me when I was in class that you always do this, this, and this. No, she said you always check your instructions for use, okay? So you're going to do that sterilization method, whether it uses chemicals like hydrogen peroxide, ETO, plasma, whatever it may be. You're going to use that chemical, you're going to use that gas, and you're going to use that heat to eliminate the trace of any leftover microorganisms that may cause infection. You're going to kill them all right? That's your job. Use a warrior. And once that sterile package comes out, if it's in a high temp machine, you're going to let it cool down until it's safe to handle and all of the packaging is now sealed back up. And if it's a low temp, you're going to go straight from the sterilizer into sterile storage. Okay, sterile storage is where you guys are going to properly handle and store all of your sterilized instruments to prevent contamination. Remember, this was a room that is temp controlled. This is a room that has air exchange is delineated for it. Make sure you know what that is. I don't have that in study hall today. Maybe I'll bring it for, as a matter of fact, YouTube, y'all bring it next week. Bring what the parameters are for your sterile storage environment, okay? Bonus points if you can tell me about decontam. But there was a temperature range that your sterile storage had to stay in. There was a certain number of air exchanges that your sterile storage has to have, okay? And you guys need to know that because it's going to be on the exam. And then lastly, distribution, right? You cleaned it, you processed it, you sterilized it, it's up on the shelf, it's ready to go. Now they got a case, they calling you, or now they got a case, they sending the preference card down on the printer, and you know you need to go to sterile storage and start building the case card. That is distribution. When you start sending out what it is that you have prepared, that is distribution. And you're going to be ensuring that the instruments are delivered to the appropriate locations for patient care. This is another reason why it's so incredibly important for y'all to use those recipes or checklists to make sure that you have everything those packs need in them before you start delivering them off to the ER, procedure rooms, and they sitting there thinking again, oh, I have everything I need to be successful. And then they open it up and they realize that it's missing something. And you didn't say nothing. You didn't put no missing sticker on the outside. You didn't tell nobody. And now my patient on the table looking crazy because I'm looking crazy. And I don't know about y'all. I don't know if anybody here ever had surgery before, but the last person I'm trying to look at looking scared back at me is procedure room tech. Don't do that. I don't have time for that. Make sure my instruments are clean and make sure they are accounted for and they are ready for me as a patient. Okay, we are all counting on that. All right. Chris says, hello, girl. Don't do that to me. Okay. Okay. So what's the primary function of SPD? What's the primary function of central service? Y'all should be able to just tell me what that is at this point. If you can't, please study before you go take that exam. All right. Then we talked about the definition of point of use cleaning. We're talking about what are the main 3 areas of SPD and what are the first steps in instrument processing. So for my folks on YouTube or my folks on TikTok, oh, thank you, Kimberly. Thank y'all. Kimberly got this thing up to 4.8, tapping. She better have carpal tunnel messing with us. I appreciate you. Okay, so first question up there, YouTube. Define point of use cleaning. Where does it occur? Where does it happen? We should know this by now. Because I've been yelling it for like 10 minutes. And then, what are the 3 main areas of SPD? Who over there? Andrea? Chris said. Somebody else was over there. Who else over there? I see you. All right. So that point of use cleaning, I'll let y'all hit that on the rewind. Because they ain't going to say it again. All right, look, I passed my test already. They ain't going to say it again. The 3 main areas of SPD are going to be decontamination, assembly, and sterilization. That's where the bulk of the action takes place. And then that first step in instrument reprocessing is always going to be that point of use cleaning. But if that instrument has been, like, let's say they used it down in that ER, right? And they did the point of use cleaning. They wiped it down. They flushed the suction. They got everything ready for you to pick it up and safely bring it down to SPD. When you get it in your decontam, you put on your PPE, and you're going to start that manual cleaning process to prepare for whatever mechanical cleaning it might need. Okay? Oh, you fine, Chris said. Don't worry, love. You're all right. I'll figure out how to make that, because I'm sure I can make that bigger for y'all. Can I do that in here? Nope, that didn't do it. I'll figure it out. And then that way y'all have a little better flow with it. Okay? And then the last one I had up there was, why is the workflow important in sterile processing? That workflow is important because it's your foundation. It's how you know how to move your instrumentation from point A to point B. All right? So cleaning, disinfection, assembly, sterilization, in that order, every single time. I remember working in a facility where I had a nursing director that was adamant that she could open a sterile package in the operating room. And let's say that case got canceled, so the patient never got brought into the room. They didn't end up using it. She was adamant that she could bring that tray into the assembly area and skip the decontam. Now, has she ever taken a sterile processing class or bothered to pass a CRCST exam? She would know you can't do that. Once you break the chain of sterilization, you have to start over from the top. That's your workflow. That's your chain of infection. That's what you guys are there to prevent having any type of issues with. Okay? All right. You know, one thing I can do is make this far a little bigger for you. Okay. Oh. Fly. All right. Okay. Next up, we're going to take a real quick look at chapters 2 and 3. Any questions so far? All right now. Let me scroll back down. Okay, so chapter 2. Chapter 2 got into the medical terminology. So this was what was training you guys on how to build a medical term. And it gives you the essential medical terminology that you're going to use in your sterile processing position. And when I say essential, what we mean by that is simply it's going to be something that you use on a pretty regular basis. Because whether you're in decontam assembly, whether you're building case carts, whether you're a runner or transporter, you're taking things between SPD and the operating room, it will always be helpful for you to understand the medical terms when you hear them as far as the procedures, right? So if I tell you I'm doing a laparotomy, it's going to help you do your job if you understand what a laparotomy is. But there's a lot of medical terms. So learning the prefixes, the roots, and the suffixes allows you guys to be able to recognize those terms, even if I give you one that you don't hear all the time, because you understand how medical terms get built. So if I've got lap in there, you know what area of the body I'm referring to. Or if I say appy, you know what type of procedure I'm talking about. All right. So prefix, root, and suffix, those are the three main components of a medical term. And then a few of them that we saw in the book were things like asepsis, and that was the absence of disease-causing microorganisms. So something that is totally clean, aseptic, right? When we hear aseptic technique, it means that I am maintaining sterility. I am not introducing any disease-causing microorganisms. We learned nosocomial infection. Nosocomial infections are those hospital-acquired infections. I talked about those quite a bit, the HAIs. So HAIs, when we say hospital-acquired infection, the mode is in the name. This is an infection that your patient didn't have before they came into your facility, and they caught it in your facility because you're dirty. No, I'm joking. Because you're dirty and trifling. No, because somewhere there's been a break in the infection prevention system. So somewhere we didn't wipe down the surface, somewhere we didn't sterilize something properly, and then this patient has been introduced to an infection that they would not have otherwise contracted. Okay, it's based in the hospital acquired. Pathogen. As any microorganism that can cause disease, your whole job is to interrupt the transport of pathogens. And then another term that we learned from chapter 2 was bioburden. Y'all done heard me say that one 1,000 times. And that's the number of microorganisms present on a contaminated object. And oftentimes when we say when we say bioburden, we're also referring to that visible soil, the blood I can see, the bone I can see. Okay? But do know that just because I can't see it doesn't mean that it's not dirty. Bioburden is still present. So medical term construction, real basic overview of how you make one. Medical terms are often built using prefixes, suffixes, and roots. You're going to use a connecting valve, such as an O, I, E. You're going to use a connecting valve to make all them little different terms make sense, right? And that's going to link them together with the root words that while you're forming these complex terms. So an example we have up here is osteoarthritis. Osteo means bone. Arthur means joint. If I know those things, and when I hear osteoporosis, I know I'm talking about a joint-related condition. Itis means inflammation. Put all that together, osteoarthritis is inflammation of a bone joint. Gastroenterology. Gastro means stomach. Intro means intestine. And logy means the study of. So gastroenterology is the study of the stomach and the intestines. Okay, so again, does that make sense as far as why you understanding those roots? Now, let's say you're running around the hospital, you're trying to drop stuff off somewhere, you see gastroenterology department on the thing, and you got these gastro packs, you don't know where to take them to. You know, you don't have to be a surgeon necessarily, but you want to have a clear understanding of that language of surgery. Okay, so spend some time with the medical terms. It won't be as big of a part of your test as far as like you knowing a million of them, but they are going to be on your test, especially when it comes to the root, the suffix, and the connecting vowels, your prefixes. Those things are going to be on there, and I guarantee you it's going to be a couple basic medical terms on there for you to identify. Okay. The bulk of that knowledge is going to be for you when you get into the field. Okay, so also in chapter 2, another big key concept we talked about was invasive surgery versus open surgery. Okay, so invasive surgery is when I'm using what we call minimally invasive surgical instruments, MIS instruments. And minimally invasive surgical instruments are those lap instruments I kept talking about, right? So these are things, the only example I got right now is my straw, all right? And it's perfect, really. Because this is what we call a cannulated item. What does cannulated mean? Cannulated means that there is a hole that runs from the rooter to the tutor, as my mom used to say, from the top to the bottom, runs all the way through this. Okay, you have suctions that look like this in your operating rooms. You have instruments, lap instruments that look like this, minimally invasive instruments that look like this, scopes that look like this. They will be insulated, right? They'll be wrapped in a coating, but the essential point of this is that they are hollow inside, full of anything you could think of, whatever they sucked up, whatever they was doing, okay? So when you guys get this, you have to flush this and you have to brush this to make sure that all those places that you can't actually reach with a rag or a towel are getting clean, okay? So minimally invasive instruments, they may be just this size. Some of them 3 millimeters, 5 millimeters in diameter, 10 millimeters, about that thick. Is about the biggest I've seen, but most of them about this small. Okay. And these are going to be the surgical instruments that have the tiny versions of your large instrument sets, right? So remember, we could have large 6-inch Mayo scissors in our surgical sets if we're doing open, but for minimally invasive, that head of that instrument might be 2 inches long. Okay. They're going to have many retractors, many scissors, many lap instruments, many everything. And they're going to make an incision into the body that's about, somewhere between 2 and 4 inches. And they're going to push that instrument inside. They're going to do several of those, and they're going to push a scope inside. And that scope is going to allow them to view what it is they're doing. And they're going to be doing surgery just like this on you. Okay. That's minimally invasive procedures. Now, compared to open. Now, if that's minimally invasive, what does open mean? Open means I'm going to crack your chest. Open means I'm going to open up your abdomen. Open means I'm going to, whatever it is I'm working on, I'm going to slice you up and I'm going to open that up to give me room to view. I'm not sticking a camera in to see and wiggle around without having to open up too much stuff, okay? So open procedures are going to require more instrumentation. They're going to require more retractors. Because once they get you open, like let's say they're doing a chest procedure, once they crack my chest, they can't just sit there and with their hands and hold it. they got to do surgery. So they're going to have retractors that hold it open while they do procedure. Okay. So in chapter 2, we learn about the difference between minimally invasive surgical procedures that are performed using small incisions and specialized instrumentation, and then open surgery that's using, I gotta do my TikTok puzzle, and I don't even know why, because Kimberly tapping the screen, so TikTok just being rude. All right, we got it though. Kimberly, I appreciate you. She up to 7.1K. YouTube, y'all better have liked that video. Oh, I swear. All right, so open surgery, traditional surgical method requiring larger incisions, often leading to longer healing times. And that's the sell with minimally invasive surgery. It's a smaller incision, it heals faster. It's not rocket science, right? So those patients are usually up and out the door much earlier than if somebody was getting the same procedure, but it was open, right? So you could do a lap epi open, and sometimes they do. Sometimes they will do a laparoscopic appendectomy, and they'll use minimally invasive instruments, but they'll find that they can't see everything they need to see. So it changes mid-case to an open, and they're calling down the SPD, and they're looking for book walters, looking for retractors, right? So you got to have that knowledge and be ready to act. So the few practice questions I had on this one was, what does the prefix micro mean in medical terminology? And I know YouTube, y'all ain't all the way with me right now because y'all can't see the screen. But micro, right, it means small. Define the term nosocomial infection. That was that. We got that up here, right? Nosocomial. Hospital-acquired infection. What is bioburden? We got it up here, right? The number of microorganisms present on a contaminated object. And remember, Alessandra told you that most often when they refer to this, they're talking about visible soil, but that does not mean that if the soil is invisible, it's not dirty. And then the difference between asepsis and sterilization. Asepsis is the absence of any type of pathogen that can cause disease, right? Sterilization means that you have cleaned all that out. So sterilization comes before you can have asepsis as a state. You have to sterilize and kill all those microorganisms in order to create an aseptic environment. So I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I find that can be a little bit confusing. All right. Okay, we got a few minutes left. I'm going to go over chapter 3 real quick. Any questions for any? Okay, when y'all come back on Monday, we're gonna go over. Let me tell you before we leave. I think I put it down already. We're going on chapters 1, 2, and 3 today. We'll get into a little bit of 4, but I didn't cover a whole lot of 4. Mostly 5, 6, and 7 for the next session. Bring your flashcards with you because we're gonna go over those terms. Okay, I definitely want y'all. I want to see y'all a little bit more active in this study hall when we come back on Monday. All right. Okay, chapter 3. Well, look, now I ain't talking to Kimberly. Kimberly, you good. Yeah. Okay. Anatomy and physiology is chapter 3. So this is going over all the body systems. This should be a refresher to you from high school, I pray. But if it's not, study this chapter because, again, this is going to be information that you're going to need to do your job successfully. It's going to help you tremendously if you gain a basic understanding of these body systems and how they work together. Okay, so musculoskeletal system, that's the system that includes your bones and joints. It provides structure to your body and helps you to induce movement. Otherwise, we would just be a big sack of mush if we didn't have our bones giving us a frame. Then we have our cardiovascular system. That's that heart system that pumps blood and delivers oxygen. So when we breathe in, right, our lungs take in oxygen and delivers that straight into our bloodstream. Our heart then pumps that blood and delivers that oxygen all over the different places of our body, and that's our cardiovascular system. Respiratory system, that is going to manage your oxygen exchange. So that's your lungs breathing in that clean oxygen. Then your lungs are going to be doing filtration. Your blood's going to be doing filtration. You're going to exhaust your CO2, and your respiratory system carries on, okay? So your respiratory system includes things like your trachea and your lungs, and that work in tandem with your cardiovascular system. And then your intergumentary system, and I may have pronounced that incorrectly, so I'll check on that too. Includes your skin, hair, and nails. This is also the system that includes your largest organ, which is your skin. Okay. So then the last one I have up here, this needs to get separated. Let me do that. Because those are your body systems that I'm covering for chapter 3. There's more systems than that. There's more parts and pieces than that. But that's just an overview, okay? Another key term we learned in chapter 3 was about those endoscopes. And that's how we do that minimally invasive surgery, right? So we take those endoscopes and we're able to look in at these systems and do surgical procedures. Or look in at these body parts and see if there are blockages or other interventions we might be able to make. Some key terms we learned in chapter 3, nucleus. This is where you guys learned about cells. Okay, you learned about the nucleus that controls your cell function. Mitochondria, which provides energy for your cell. You learned about cytoplasm, which is a gel-like housing of your organelles. Your organelles are found inside of your cells. And your cell membrane. Your cell membrane protects and regulates the transport of things into and out of your cells. All right. This portion of the book is going to be important for you to know when it comes to disinfection, because one of the key things about understanding how to clean something is understanding what it is that you're cleaning. You kind of got to know how blood gets built. You kind of got to know how bone gets built, how you build up mucus, how you build up tissue, because then that's going to give you a little more background on how to break those things down. Okay. All right. Let me skip back, see if I missed anything from YouTube. No. Okay, YouTube. So, last couple practice questions. I'm going to throw the answers at y'all at. And then when we come back next week, we'll get into chapter 4 and beyond. In chapter 3, we looked at which organs are responsible for oxygen exchange in the respiratory system. Right? I just talked about those. You should be able to drop that in the chat. The question number 2 was, what is the primary function of the cardiovascular system? What is the largest organ in the human body? Define the term endoscope. And what system controls movement of the body? You're more than welcome to answer any of all of those in the chat. And I'll give y'all a few minutes and then I'll throw the answers out. While y'all going on what organ is responsible for oxygen exchange, what the primary role of the cardiovascular system is, what the largest organ in the body is, how to define an endoscope, and what system controls movement in the body, I'm going to talk a little bit about next Monday and what else is coming up in the Ready, Set, Sterilize series, okay? So on Monday, we will be having a very similar session to this. I will have notes up on the screen for you guys when we do quick overviews of the chapters. We'll be talking about key terms, and I'll be having practice questions for you. I would much appreciate it if you guys engage with me. Otherwise, this is a little bit lonely in my little box. Okay. Also, this is for you. I passed my CRCST. I got it. Okay. I keeps it. I ain't worked in the sterile processing department in about a year and a half, baby, but I keeps that certification on me. I keeps the thing on me. So it's something I encourage you to do, is to make sure you carve out a little bit of your day every day. And if you can't carve, and listen to me as I say this, I'm so serious about this. If you cannot carve out a little bit of your day every day to study this, you're not ready to take this test. And you're not ready to be a CRCST. Okay? If you can't find 15 minutes, 30 minutes at a minimum every day to study this exam content, don't go take that test and say that you graduated the Candray Institute, because you're going to be embarrassing me and my friends. Okay? You're not ready. This is serious information for you guys to embody, okay? So I know we've been learning it passively, but I just want to keep drilling that into you. This is life or death. If you pass this exam and you go in and you work in that field and you don't understand the basics, you could create a pack that kills somebody. You could create a pack that causes somebody to have sepsis. Let me tell you something I'm dealing with right now in the Candray Institute. Let me tell you about a phone call I got from a company this week. They said, we are noticing that our infection rate for our C-section patients is high. We don't know why. We just know that our mother-baby unit is experiencing high amounts of surgical infection. Can you take a look for us? I told them, of course, I'll be there. I'll be going there next week. Take a look. They said, can you just come do our instruments for us? I said, I can, but I'm not your solution. I can come in and I can do your instruments for you and get you ready for tomorrow, but I can't come in here every day and get you ready for tomorrow. What I can do is I can come in here and I can look at what you're doing. I can tell you how to get yourself ready for tomorrow. I can come in here and I can train a technician to get ready to help you to be ready for tomorrow today. That I can do. At the Candray Institute, I can train somebody for tomorrow today. But that's the best I can do. Because I'm one tech, right? I can't be in every single surgical unit. I would love to collect all that money, but it's not feasible. That's why I decided to make this company to train people to do this work so that you guys can go out. First and foremost, get your bag because we all got bills. Money is real. Healthcare offers real good benefits, health insurance, life insurance, death and dismemberment, pension plans, some of them are even still offering. Okay. But also, I want you guys to be able to keep these patients safe. I want patients to be able to roll into an operating room confidently and know, yes, I'm scared because these people are going to cut me, but I feel safe because I know that everybody that works here cares about their science and they're getting their stuff done. So to me, if you can't do that as a tech, as a student, you're not going to be successful with that as a technician. All right. So that's why I say that. Take the time. 15, 30 minutes a day, review your flashcards, watch a podcast, listen to a YouTube video on your lunch. You don't have to study for this like it's the bar exam, but you do need to make sure that you understand these basic concepts because otherwise you may go off and create a pack that hurts somebody and be none the wiser. Okay, I guarantee you every single one of those mothers that contracted an infection at their C-section site has no idea the name of the sterile processing technician that put their kit up. But I know how to find that information. And the other information I want y'all to take away from this is patients will find that information if it comes to it. If it comes to a lawsuit, the records exist, right? We talked about records and we're going to talk about records again as we go through these chapter reviews. But your name goes on this stuff. So if they call somebody like me and they say, hey, I got an infection, and I've done this consulting too, where I've had a patient call me and say, I had surgery at this hospital and I got an infection. And I want to know who washed my trays, who assembled my trays, who transported my trays, who opened my trays. I want to know that. Now, as a former sterile processing technician and a former sterile processing manager, I know exactly what documentation to ask for to get that information. And I will. And I will. And I will. Okay. I need y'all to take it that seriously. The man that I named this company after, Candray, he took it that seriously. Juan was an EVS tech. He worked in environmental services, cleaning the SPD department. And he learned that job while he cleaned that department. He was dedicated. If you can't find 15, 30 minutes a day to study this, you ain't dedicated. If that man can learn them surgical instruments while he did his job and he had to get to his next location, I don't want to hear nothing about you ain't got time for 15, 30 minutes a day. Okay? Make the time. Invest in yourself. Get this certification under your belt. Get into the field. There's money to be made, but also there's a difference to be made. When we look at the healthcare system, we're all counting on them folks when we go in there to be competent. And I can tell you, just like you go in Walmart or you go to Wendy's, not everybody there is top flight security, okay? Y'all got to be that change for my heart to rest, okay? For me to be able to go to sleep at night. All right, so today we went over chapters 1, 2, and 3. We just did the introduction of sterile processing, what your role is in sterile processing, how important it is for you guys to break that sterile infection chain. I'm holding this container of a study hall for you for the next 4 Mondays. So from here until I believe it's June 16th, I'll be with you at 4:45 Central Standard Time for about an hour, 15 minutes. You guys are more than welcome to bring any questions that you have from your reading. I know different ones of us have different books. It's all the same. You can ask any question you like. I would love it if you guys can bring your flashcards to class next session so that we can practice together, because I can share a link to be able to bring y'all up on the screen if y'all feel comfortable with that. Otherwise, you can drop your questions or your terms in the chat and we'll take turns answering them. I think that's all I got. for today, it would be very helpful to me as far as the business is concerned, from wherever you are, whether you're on TikTok or on YouTube, if you would head over to my website, the link is in the bios, and register for the study hall. If there's no fee, it's totally free. And the only benefit to that for me is just to show impact to investors, because I have been, if y'all don't know, I think I've been talking about it. I've been building this business as a part of a small business accelerator program. So they've been helping me like get my LLC filed and get all my bank account, get all my official stuff ready to go. And I just recently did a competition pitching my business and explaining why I think my business is a solution that they should invest in. And I won. Not once, but twice. So I wanted to just be able to show them that that investment that they made in the Candray Institute is helping, because there are people on TikTok and there are people on YouTube that are spending time learning this information. Again, not required at all. You don't have to do it at all, but it would be a help to me and a help to the Candray Institute, and a great way to repay the free service is just by going over to the Candray Institute website and registering for the class. It's the first little link when you get on the page. It's a little big old orange button. All right. Otherwise, y'all know how to find me. If you need me on the in-between, you can send me an email. I had a question come up in class. Is it too late to turn in my essays? Nope. As long as you were there during class, if you want to turn in your essay for a certificate of completion, go ahead and do that. Once that essay is turned in and I review it and I feel comfortable with it, I will send you a link to fill out for your certification, and I'll get that printed and mailed off to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all for supporting the Candray Institute as we deliver sterile processing education excellence directly to you. Y'all have a beautiful rest of your Memorial Day.